What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Pixel Perspective Podcast. My name is JJ, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Adrian. Adrian, what's going on, man?
Hey, JJ, what's up?
That was like part Italian, part some guy trying to be Italian.
It was all the Bud. You remember those Budweiser commercials from the 90s? What's up?
Unfortunately, yes, I do.
Yeah, that was my attempt. That was the Adrian "What's up."
It totally landed.
Hey, I never said I was good at landing jokes. I just contribute any way I can.
That's fair. What's up, man? What you been playing?
Whoa, jumping right into it. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, that's what we always do first.
You know, there's always some little bit of jibber jabber, jib jab, jabber jabber.
You got something you want to jibber jabber about?
Not particularly, I guess.
Well,
but,
see?
Well, man, let's see here. I have almost exclusively been playing Chrono Cross, which is the subject of today's show, mind you. But beyond that, really, I can't think of anything too significant. I started 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, right after I finished Chrono Cross. That is still in my Switch, but I haven't played more than probably an hour of it. So not long enough to really form an opinion yet on it. I do like the art style in that game. That was one of the biggest reasons I have it.
For good things. I'm glad you finally finished Mother 3 and Elden Ring.
Well, those are games that I will come back to. And actually, it's good that you reminded me of Mother 3 because I forgot that I was playing that. I do need to go back to it, and I will. And Elden Ring, like I told you before, that's an all-year game. I could come back to that game anytime I feel the itch to play some Souls-like material. And yeah, I'm taking a little bit of a break from it. I've got about, I don't know, 75 hours-ish into that game. I just feel like I need a break. And the good thing about those games is I can leave it and come back at any time, and I can jump right back into it and remember how to play. It's so similar to the way the Souls games play that it's not that big a deal. But I'm telling you, man, I don't think I'm anywhere close still to beating that game.
Well, when you say beating, you mean rolling credits.
Rolling credits, yeah. Because
I mean, like beating, like finishing, like completing is a whole separate story. I rolled credits, but I was nowhere near like all the stuff that I could potentially do in that game.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
Incredibly
it's
massive.
Yeah,
I've done so much stuff, and the thing is I'm just having fun exploring. I don't feel the need to keep progressing, but when I was playing it, I didn't feel the need to progress through the story. More or less, I'm walking around trying to find dungeons to explore or bosses to take on. Sure. I have to admit something here. I'm not proud of it, but I did it. I kind of exploited a glitch to get myself extra runes and level myself up. A buddy of mine showed me this glitch that quickly got patched, but while it was available, it allowed you to get about close to 200,000 runes in about 5 minutes. And yeah, it's insane. So I leveled up my character probably to like 130 or something. And it's been easier, but not as easy as you would think with leveling up that much.
Oh, I was 160 when I finished it. It was still challenging.
Yeah, it's incredible. I went into that city, the big city that's got multiple layers and it's got a sewer system and things like that. I can't remember the name of it, but there was a guy on a horse blocking the gate to get in, or the door to get into it, and I couldn't beat him. And after I leveled up, I was finally able to beat him. And even then, it wasn't that easy to beat him. And I am now in that city. I wish I could remember the name of it. But
Are you
anyway,
talking about the Golden Knight that's like on the far left side? You have to go through there. That's like required to get through that spot. I cheesed him.
Did you?
You can sneak up behind him, put poison on him, and just keep putting poison on him, and he doesn't detect you.
Smart. Yep. Well, I didn't cheese him, but I did cheese my level 2 in order to beat him. So yeah, I got through there, and that place is tough, man. I'm having a hard time in that place.
Yeah,
the enemies there are not easy to kill. They gang up on you very quickly, and it's tough.
If you're only there, you've got a long way to go.
Yeah, that's good. That's what I want. That's what I want. I'm excited to keep going into that. But like I said, I need to be able to take a break every now and then.
Sure.
I've been wanting to play 13 Sentinels Aegis Ring for a while. I have it on my PS4, but that game does not lend itself well to for my gameplay style. Like if I'm going to play a game that's heavily story driven like this game is, I'm going to get turned off pretty easily if I'm sitting on the couch playing it. It is it's easier for me to have the thing in my face, like and just kind of absorb myself into it, kind of like a book, you know. But yeah, that game so far has been, what'd you say? I didn't even hear what you said, but you
said phrasing, because you just said it's easier for me to have that thing in my face.
Well,
for those of you audio listening, he had his hands up in his face, like, yeah.
Well, you know, gotta hold the switch.
I don't know at all. Oh, okay.
Yeah, man. I don't know where you've been.
I don't know where you've been.
Playing my Switch with 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, which is a really
I've heard really good things about it. Somebody sent it to me. Lamont. Yeah.
Good old
Lamont. I have told him constantly, next time I move, I'm not giving him my address at all.
Did he give you the PS4 version?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did briefly start the PS4 version, but you know, now that I have the Switch, I've already gotten further than I did on the PS4, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. The storyline is good. I don't completely get the gameplay mechanics yet. It's really just walking around talking to people, but you have to talk to them multiple times to progress the storyline and to give yourself more options. And then you have to push like the Y button or the triangle button to bring up some additional options that will give you, you know, different things that you can say, but those won't even be available to you until you walk around the room and talk to other people. And it's straight up like an old school point and click type of game, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
It reminds me of that quite a bit.
Interesting.
But I haven't noticed any puzzle elements. It's really all related to dialogue.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's beautiful. Oh my gosh, the lighting is insane. Like the first area that you start off in is like a classroom, and there's some students sitting at their desk, and there's light coming through the windows, and it looks so good. And nice. It's 2D, but your characters walk in a 3D kind of plane, kind of like Guardian Heroes or something like that.
You like 2D?
I do.
2D's nuts. Got him.
I knew there was something coming from that. Yeah. Other than that,
I'm not even drinking tonight. Just so we're clear.
You know, I was thinking the same thing. We're a little bit
at all. Yeah, no.
A little bit wild tonight.
I just got back from Vegas. I did all my drinking out there.
That's right. You still got the Vegas mood going, which is cool.
It's pretty great. Is that it? That all you've been playing for the most part? And Chrono Cross, obviously.
Dude.
What?
I was just gonna say that I've been playing Pokemon.
Which don't say Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go, Pokemon Pearl. So what I did.
Oh, Pearl. Okay, cool. That's cool.
Brilliant or Shining, whatever the one is. Anyway, I've been playing. I subscribed to the Pokemon Home, and I also got the Pokemon Bank on 3DS.
Yep.
And I've been transferring my Pokemon from my 3DS games over into Pokemon Home, and I've been having a blast with that, honestly. And if you use Pokemon Home on your Switch, it's a different experience than it is on your phone. So on your Switch, it's almost strictly like a Pokedex and a Pokebox, organizational tool. So you can move Pokemon from your Switch games over into your Pokemon Home. You can also import Pokemon from Pokemon Go and from your 3DS games using the Pokemon Bank. Once you get them all into the Pokemon Home, if you use the app on your phone, you can trade Pokemon, and they've got Wonder Trade, and they've got trade systems where you can search for a specific type of Pokemon and then offer up another Pokemon and want, in exchange for whatever Pokemon you want. Just the way it always works in the games, but you can do it from home, which I think is awesome.
That's pretty cool.
So I've been that's been taking up a lot of my time. I've been transferring a lot of Pokemon over from Go, and just I'm trying to fill out that Dex, man. I got to get that home Dex completed. I feel like that's a reasonable goal now with the connectivity between all the games. And I've already, all my 3DS games and DS for that matter, you can even transfer some DS to the 3DS, then to Pokemon Home. It's kind of, it goes way back. So I've beaten most of the Pokemon games. So I still have my save file on all those carts, so I can go in and take the Pokemon that I have currently and just move them over if I want. And yeah, it's been cool. So yeah, that's kind of really it. We've been playing a lot of Mario Party too as a family.
Thanks for the invite. That's cool. Thanks. That's fine.
We've been playing. We haven't had room to even go online because we've been having a full room. That game only allows for 4 players. I think it should allow for like 8. What do you think?
Sure. Mario Party's, as much as I like the idea of playing online, I think Mario Party is one of the few instances where I really think like you're robbing yourself if you're not playing it locally with people.
Yeah.
Especially with Nintendo, because their voice chat is garbage. So anything online with them is kind of crap in that regard. The games can be great, but I like to talk to people while I'm playing, and it's having to use my phone or some bullcrap. Yeah.
Well, Superstars has been awesome, and for a few reasons. We've tried the Wii U versions of Mario Party, and we played the Mario Party on the Switch, the first one.
The Wii U one isn't very good.
Yeah, it's not good at all. None of them really stuck. None of them really caught our attention. But Superstars did. Like instantly it did. You were able
it's just a collection of all the best stuff from the older games.
Right, but it's not just that. It's like they dumb it back down to its simple form. It's not, they don't add in all these extra features that overcomplicate it or make it last longer than it should. One of the biggest problems I had with the older games is like whenever there's too much story, too much dialogue, and it's like, let's just move, let's keep playing. It's got a system. But you would get to a point where your teammates, or not your teammates, so the people you're playing against, would have too many options, and it would take them too long to make a turn, and it just you get bored sitting there waiting for your turn to come up. That hasn't been the issue in Superstars at all. Like it's pretty fast paced as far as
are you sure it's not just because when you played it back then it was years ago and your kids were way younger trying to figure out what to do, and now they just know what, dude doing?
You're probably right. That is a great point.
Because I'm sitting here like that. I don't remember ever having that issue with like too many options for stuff. It was like your options were like, I roll this 1 dice or I roll this higher dice. That's about it. Maybe use an item or something.
Well, I'm not even going to mention Wii U because Wii U had that whole system with Bowser, and it sucked. Forcing
you to play 1 on 3 or 4 or whatever it was.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
But yeah, I think you might be right. But I do really like playing on the older maps because the older maps are simple. They really are.
Agreed. Yeah.
We played on the island map and we played on the cake map. I don't remember what games those came from originally, but
Bumper Balls is still my favorite game, and that's from the very first Mario Party.
What is that?
Simple. One? You're just literally on a platform, and you are like on top of these like giant rubber balls, and you're just trying to not bump people off the edges, just rolling around. That's it. It's great.
I don't think I have a favorite mini game. all the ones that we played, we had fun with. None of them particularly stood out to me. The one that frustrated me the most was like a baseball one where you have to hit the ball, and everybody's standing in a line. It was so hard to judge where the ball was and when to swing the bat, and I guess that was the whole reason for it, the challenge of it. But that's the
you
only
guys
one.
Gonna get strikers?
I'm really considering it. I enjoy the other Strikers games, and I think that might be a fun one for us to play. I'm waiting on reviews first. Are you?
Yeah.
Does it have online features?
I think it looks great. It does. Yeah.
If you're picking it up,
like make leagues and stuff. It's crazy.
I did really enjoy Strikers and Strikers Charged. What very little I played of them. It's super
yeah, I
fun.
didn't play much, but I thought they were really neat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's all I've been playing. What about you?
Nothing.
Hell yeah. Okay, well, that's the show. Wrap it
up. So obviously Chrono Cross, which we'll get into. I'm actually on my third playthrough right now. Because I'm going through I'm trying to get the platinum trophy, and it requires multiple. The freaking recruiting every character is like the wonkiest, stupidest mechanics that they have for that. It's dumb. But I also finished up for the first time Wolfenstein the New Order. I played that on PS4, and that game is excellent. I'm not crazy on the gunplay. I thought it was a little weak because I didn't like with the shots and stuff like that. I like to feel the impact of bullets hitting and like explosions and that kind of stuff. I really didn't get that in that game very much at all. That was my one gripe. Everything else, I thought the environments, I thought the story, I thought like just the whole concept was really, really good. And it was very well executed. Just the gunplay was a little meh for me, but far from anything that ruined it for me.
I would agree with that. I would also say that game is a little bit challenging. I died quite a bit.
It is pretty tough. Yeah, I died a handful of times as well. It is pretty tough. But I definitely enjoyed it.
What about the part? And I don't know. Okay, spoiler talk for just a second. So if you don't want to hear it, fast forward like, I don't know, a minute. It won't take us that long to get through it. The part when you get captured and
the very beginning,
he gets his head cut off, and they put his head on a different body.
What?
Okay, maybe.
I sort of, I know what you're talking about. We can talk about it after the show. That's not exactly what happens. And that's
how I remembered it.
2 separate points, sort of. Because you get captured at the beginning, but it doesn't actually show you what happens to. It doesn't show you the results of the choice you made until the very end of the game, like the full results. And that's where you see, and it's like a robot, not another body. So we can talk about it afterwards.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I know what you mean though.
It's the shocker moments in that game that stood out to me the most.
Well, the shocking part of that was they literally make you make an insane decision, like right off the bat. Like, what the hell? Am I really supposed to like make this call right now? Like, yeah, that kind of shocked me. And I kind of expected that because I had heard in the beginning, like when the game first came out, that there was something the game forces you into choosing. But I didn't like look into spoilers or know what it was until I played it this time, and I was like, "Oh, dang, okay, now I feel guilty." But it was a really, really cool game. I also I don't know if I mentioned that I finished Guild Wars 2, the main campaign. Like, really? Not all the expansions and stuff. We're still working through those, but we're like kind of being like lax about those. We still play Friday nights, well, I play Friday nights when Brian's able to, because we've been going through it together. But honestly, the story was fantastic, and the end of the original campaign was just super epic. Just this giant like airship battle with a dragon attacking. You have to like run to different cannons and shoot them, and like take out spawns of his that like laying on the deck and stuff that you got to fight around, and you got to go back to the cannons at some point, and NPCs are running all around like trying to take down other guys. So it's just really cool, especially if you got people to play with. It's a blast. It was just super epic. And it's the expansions that we've been playing through have kind of like just doubled down on that kind of gameplay. So it's just getting better and better. It's great. when I'm not playing that though on my PC, I've been playing still Trails in the Sky, Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky, second chapter, and so much text in that game, my God. But seriously, one of the best stories, and like where I'm hooked and I want to know what happens next and stuff, in a game that I've played, period. It's just been an absolute pleasure to play through and kind of get to know the cast. I love the cast of characters. I love the art style. I just am really, really enjoying the hell out of it. It's just really text heavy. And so there's a lot of times where I find myself like, all right, I get it. You don't have to like, repeat yourself 74 times here. It's kind of like that, like from what I understand in Japanese culture, their language is like, they tend to confirm a lot. And so that kind of like is awkward when you're translating it to English. It'll be like, just a random thing like Jimmy is the killer. And then somebody else will be like, I'm sorry, did you say Jimmy is the killer? And then somebody's like, yes, Jimmy is the killer. And they repeat like the entire sentence over and over and over again when they're confirming something. And it's just kind of like, to us, that sounds redundant, but I guess to them, that's how they talk. That's part of the way they communicate. So for them, it makes sense, but it's just a little awkward and it kind of makes it drag on a little bit in this. But it's not like, a deal breaker by any means. I am loving the game so much, and I should be finishing that up the next couple of weeks. I would be done. I've just only been playing one night a week. So, and then also Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, I have been playing.
Crisis Core.
If you're not a Final Fantasy VII fan, then yeah, you probably will think it's a little boring.
Even if you are a Final Fantasy VII fan.
The gameplay is not my cup of tea. It's fine. I don't like the materia mixing and melding and like the freaking alchemy type mechanics that they have. You and I were talking earlier today, and I basically said, like, you want to turn me off from your game, throw some kind of alchemy mechanic in there, and I will be like, no thanks, it's not for me. Do not like it. But I love it. It has made me like the characters a lot more from the original game. Like the new characters that are introduced, they're fine, and like whatever. But I really, really like getting to know Zack a lot. I like seeing Aerith in her younger years. Well, younger years, not that far behind, but like kind of seeing what she was like before. It explains like why she's selling flowers. It explains how Zack got his Buster Sword, and like seeing Sephiroth before the events of Final Fantasy VII and how he's kind of like a big brother to Zack, and it's super interesting to see their relationship play out. I literally just got to Nibelheim, which is where the events of FF7 take place, where it talks about Zack and everything. So I'm about to get to like the big stuff.
That's where I always end up quitting the game.
Oh, that's like really close to the end.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought it was Nibel. Do you go to Nibelheim another time?
There's 10 chapters. That's chapter 8.
Well, there's a village that you go to, and it's a village from Final Fantasy VII, and it's always in that village where I end up quitting the game.
I mean, there's a handful of places you go to from FF7. There's Midgar, there's Junon.
It might be Junon. Yeah, it might be Junon. Junon. I've never heard
that's
it like
that.
I always said
chapter
Junon.
4 or 5 or something.
I think that sounds about right. It's always right after that where I quit.
That place is really, really short too. But it's okay. I'll be glad to knock it off the list just because I've wanted to play it for years, because I've wanted a little bit more of Zack, and especially with what they're doing with 7 Remake, I would like to know a little more about Zack and what happened with him, because I need to see the ending and how that plays out. So once I'm done with it, I'm probably going to be firing up Terra Enigma on the Super Nintendo. I'm super excited to hop into that, because
that's one I really want to play
great
too. I've never played.
It looks fantastic. Yeah, that's pretty much it, other than just slot machines.
Yeah. Did you win anything?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I had to hit the bank when I got back. I did. Yeah. So just funny little side story. This is funny because the last time that I talked about going to a casino, I talked about how I won money. And so now I'm about to do it again. This one is kind of like a really, really, and I swear, hand to God, this is a true story. So I had brought enough for about $100 a day to spend and lose on gambling. And that's, I have $100, and if I lose it, then I'm like, I planned for it. It's all good. I had fun. I got to play. I made it last, whatever. $100 is usually for me enough to make me play long enough to where I'm not like, oh my God, that just went and it was done. It's enough for me to make it last where I can play a few games of something and hang out for a while. That doesn't include like food and drink and all that stuff because that was all separate. But so it was, I was down 300. No, I say down, but I mean 300 that I'd planned to lose. And it was the fourth day that I was there, my last day. And I was had my last 100 that I was going to gamble with. And I'm walking over and I see a set of 4 machines that are the Wizard of Oz. And I was like, you know what? My dad's favorite movie when he was growing up was The Wizard of Oz. So maybe I will go and check this out. And I'm not joking when I tell you this. One of the 4 machines had a glitch on it, a graphical glitch. It was showing like when you win on these games, sometimes like there will be like big flashy like graphics and like animations and stuff going on. There was a bunch of coins that were just coming down on the screen. You could see everything, you could still play it, everything looked fine, but just like there was a graphical glitch where just coins were just raining down, no noise or anything like that. I thought that was odd, but the machine still worked and the other machines were occupied. So I was like, I guess I'll pick this one, sure, because it was my dad's favorite movie growing up, and it's obviously standing out because it has the graphical glitch here. So I sit down, pop in, I lost about 20, and then all of a sudden I hit one for 500.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, and then I kept playing and I lost another 30 or so, and then I was like, I'll stop pressing my luck there, and I left it, and I came away a little bit ahead from what gambling, which is amazing for Vegas if you've ever been. I think there's been one other time, and I've been to Vegas double digits at this point, where I've come back in the positive. So yeah, it was just pretty cool, and I couldn't help but think like maybe Dad was watching out for me on that one, because I swear to God, I came back like later that day, and that machine was fine, was not doing the graphical thing, and like I came back like an hour later, and it was not doing that the graphical thing again. It was like, play this one, come here, do this. I swear to God, stack of Bibles, that's totally true story. That's how.
Dude, I totally believe it. That is awesome.
Yep. Yeah, it was a good trip. Went there with some friends, and I have never rented a cabana before, but I am never going back and never going in a pool without doing that ever again, because it was amazing having an entire cabana all day with like a server that would come by and bring you drinks, and it was awesome. It was great. Met some cool people, man. And yeah, it was a good time.
It's awesome. We all need a good vacation every now and then. I haven't been to Vegas. I went to Vegas when I was a teenager. I haven't been since, and I don't know. I would like to go back sometime, but just to see. I was too young to be able to do anything, but it looks.
My first time I was 19, and I loved it. Yeah, I had a blast. It was for my dad's business had a convention out there. So yeah, nice. It was a good time. I like, because I don't typically gamble. I'm not a big gambler at all, but I like the noise and the lights and the sounds of just the casinos and everything, and the food out there is really good. And yeah, I love going.
Do they still have?
I miss Lock for sure.
Do they still have cheap buffets?
I don't know if they've ever had cheap buffets. Maybe in like the hole in the wall restaurants around the area, but the buffets we normally go to are in the hotels, and those are not cheap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like, depending on which one you go to in the day of the week, anywhere between like $30 and $50 a person.
Oh wow. No, yeah. Like I remember when we went to a buffet. It was in a big casino, and it was like $10 a person or something. And I don't know, but that was back in the 90s. I don't know if that's
probably why. Yeah. That's probably why back then. It makes sense.
Cool, man. I did forget to mention one game that I'm playing, and just briefly, I started The Last of Us 2.
Oh,
Yeah. And it's kind of got me already. I wasn't fully expecting it. The game went on sale for like $10, and that was my buy point for that game. So I went ahead and picked it up, and the graphics are mind-boggling. Like, even for a PS4 game, it looks amazing. The attention to detail in that game is so incredible. Yeah, I forget at how detail oriented they are and how perfectionist they are with everything. Like the animations, every little step that anybody takes, they're going to do natural things that people do. You don't feel like you're watching two computers talk to each other, or two digital art people talking to each other. It feels like a movie. But that's also a little bit of a downside, I think, to the game, because I think they spend, at least in the first 3 or 4 hours that I played of it, they spend too much time on the story, way too much time on the story. And some crazy stuff goes down during that time. But out of the 4 hours I played, I probably have 45 minutes of actual gameplay. And that's not just from walking from point A to point B while two characters are talking to each other. That's
actually the first game, right?
Yeah. But that was a long time ago. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I do remember there being quite a bit of gameplay in the first game. A lot of exploring and
pretty crazy stuff later on in this one. Although there is the big scene. I would assume you've probably gotten there. The big scene at the beginning, where that pissed a lot of the fans off. Yes, understandably so.
I already knew it was coming. I mean, it's hard to miss. It's been spoiled to death. But even after seeing it, I'm like, I was a little bit irritated. I was like, this is not right. And then it made me not like the characters. I don't.
Well, that's why people were mad about it, was because I made a video about this a while ago, is because they have that event that happens, and then they make you play as this person who like perpetuated that event.
Right.
It's kind of like, I really don't like this person. Why would I do that? Like it's and I had said in my video, like, it would have been better had they saved that for the end of the game and had you play as that character leading up to it, make you care about them first, and then have that and be like, oh my God. And now you're torn because you like them, but they just did this.
So I'm wondering what's going to happen, and if they're going to try to turn that character around at all. I don't know. As of right now, I don't like her, and I don't like Ellie either. Ellie is super annoying to me. She's too first of all, she's too like she's kind of, I don't even know the word I'm looking for, man. She's cold. She's very cold. Now I get it for her character, like maybe in the environment and the setting that she's in and everything, she has to be that way.
She's a young kid. That's how she's grown up.
Well, it's not only that, it's like now she's driven. She has a drive, and the drive isn't a good one, and it's motivating her to push through. But I'm not connecting with her. I didn't connect with the other main character.
Yeah,
I'm not connecting with these characters at all. But I am still drawn to what's going on. And the part that I'm in right now is the part where you have to scale a wall and get into this city, and then you have to unlock this gate to let your teammate go through the gate. And that part to me was so fun. I love that. That is exploration, puzzle solving, all mixed into one. I didn't have to fight anything. Like, I don't want to fight all the time. I like the puzzle solving exploration stuff. If that game has a lot more of that, I think I'm really going to enjoy it. But if it doesn't, if it's gonna sway me away. It's just, my only complaint thus far is too much story. Let's back off the story a little bit and let me play the damn game. If you want to make a movie, make a movie. That's the way I feel.
You play Uncharted.
I love Uncharted. Yeah. That's it, though.
All right, ready to talk Chrono Cross?
I am, man. I am.
All right, so Chrono Cross. You know what? Since it is the new remastered version that just came out with the Radical Dreamers, did you finish Radical Dreamers? You didn't, did you? You didn't,
no.
Did you? I'm so shocked. This is my surprise face.
It's true.
Audio listeners, I'm not surprised at all.
He's not joking. I don't finish games. So I did go back to it. I did try to finish it.
Your words. It doesn't count unless you beat Radical Dreamers. I believe you said first too.
I will eat my words right now because I didn't finish it. To be honest with you, I just lost interest in it. I was playing it some more. It's a book. I
don't blame you.
It's a book.
Yeah.
It's a book with some very like
terrible
weird
combat.
Yes. And I lost interest. And the thing is like the storyline wasn't really at all connected to the game at all. So, I mean, in that it had the same characters, but they were different characters, if that makes sense.
Yes. So this is why some people say you should play Chrono Cross first before you go to it, because there's a part in Chrono Cross where it talks about let me see how to phrase this. So the whole point, the main plot of Chrono Cross revolves around Surge, the main character, who basically finds out that there are two worlds out there. In one of them, he died as a little kid. The other one, he is alive. And you're going back and forth between two worlds, seeing the differences between them, meeting people on both sides and everything, and kind of trying to figure out which timeline is the correct one and how you can like restore the right timeline and make sure that you can choose your own destiny rather than having it be one of these set in stone thing, blah blah blah, this whole thing. But there's a point in the game later on where you find out like, hey, there's like more than just two realities out there. There's tons of them. And that's what Radical Dreamers is. It's one of these additional realities that you're kind of getting a little teaser of, one of these other events that had happened. So at least that's how I interpreted it.
In actuality, Radical Dreamers was made before Chrono Cross as like a sequel to Chrono Trigger, before they greenlit the game. Just as a background about Radical Dreamers, for those of you who don't know, and it was made as a very quick, basically like storybook game. And it's all text driven. Even the battle system is text driven. There are pictures that show up in the background behind the text to help illustrate what's going on. But what's going on is you've got Kid, you've got Surge, and you've got the other guy. I forget his name.
I don't remember either. He's not even in the game.
Yeah, he's not in Chrono Cross. But they are going after the frozen flame. Thank you. They're going after the flame, trying to steal it from the Viper Manor, and which is exactly what happens in Chrono Cross. But Surge is like a fisherman, I think. Kid is like a thief, still a thief. But I don't know, like it's just a story told in that perspective was not very interesting to me.
Well, Kid has a personal vendetta against Lynx because of what he did to
similar to Chrono Cross,
to Luca. Yeah.
But the thing is with what happened in that game, they made that first, and then when they got the green light to make actually Chrono Cross, they changed the story. And I think this was just a precursor to that. And the excuse is that, it's probably just a side story from an alternate universe, which is fine.
That's how I interpreted it. Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as I was going, I thought it had more tie-ins to Chrono Cross storyline more than just an alternate path.
I did too. Yep.
And that's why I lost interest in it, to be quite honest.
Understandable. Wuss.
I am.
So I mean, that's kind of like the main gist of Chrono Cross is the two worlds that you're going back and forth. It's going to be damn near impossible to like talk about this game without talking about Chrono Trigger, which we did a whole episode on Chrono Trigger a couple months ago. So go check out that if you haven't heard it already. But
despite what people say that this isn't a true Chrono Trigger sequel, that it's more like
it's more of a spiritual successor.
It really is a true Chrono Trigger sequel. I mean, I feel like
it was way more of a sequel than I remembered it being. I think I just, because I had heard so many people say that it was a spiritual successor, it just got drilled into my head, even though I had beaten the game years ago, that I completely forgot that literally the characters from the game are in this as well. Yeah. So it's, I thought that was actually really cool. I was happy to see it because I love Chrono Trigger so much. And even if it's just like little tidbits, I love seeing those characters in there again still.
I agree. And having played the game originally back when it first came out and not having played Chrono Trigger first, I missed those references entirely. And so it was cool to see that this time.
Yeah, I really, really wish the world, though, was bigger. I get that there's two and you're going back and forth between the two, but honestly, you don't even really go back and forth that much between the two. And the zones that are there are like, they're cool and they're diverse. But maybe it was just because Chrono Trigger had so many time periods that you were traveling to, and you got an airship that you were flying around in, covering an entire world map, that it felt so much bigger. Even though I'm sure if you look at like, you know, actual land area and stuff, this game probably would be bigger overall. It just felt very, very closed off from the potential of just this massive world that Chrono Trigger set up. Because it was just like, that was a little disappointing to me. I was not crazy how closed off it felt and how just small, how much smaller everything felt in this one. I don't know if you felt the same way.
No, so I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I think one of my bigger complaints about Chrono Trigger was the confusing nature of traveling within all these different time periods. I never fully understood or grasped where I was, what time period I was in. You remember when we were talking about Chrono Trigger, I didn't remember there was two of the same time period.
I'm starting to kind of understand now why you take so long on your Mario Party turns.
Why is that?
You just get confused easily, clearly.
Man, I couldn't figure it out. I didn't realize that those were, because it sound when you get into the edge of time and you see the two and they're the same time period.
There we go. Oh my god, it's the same. That's the one example you have. That's it.
Also, like, I didn't know what time. There was too many options. You had all these different time periods.
No, you're not wrong.
Go to.
You're not wrong.
It only started to make sense to me when you actually got the time machine and were able to see the C with the little pointer to tell you where to go. Yeah. That visual helped me out so much with understanding everything. Prior to that, though, dude, with those little lights in the edge of time, I never got it. I never understood where or how it worked or where things were. Like, I understood that they were different.
They don't move around. If you go through one, it'll be there the next time you go through it.
Yeah, but it didn't make sense to me. I need a visual. But in Chrono Cross, it's simple. There's two areas you can go to. It's two alternate timelines. They look exactly the same, though. That is the downfall with that. I think one of the worlds should probably look a little bit different. That's where Chrono Trigger, I think, gets it right.
I will also concede that I probably have an easier time with Chrono Trigger and navigating because I've played the game so many times. Yeah. I have done it back to front, like up, down, sideways. Like, yeah, it's I've played it way too many times. So I'm just used to it.
With Chrono Cross, you only have one overworld map with a bunch of little islands that you can go to.
Yeah.
But there's two of them for two different timelines. And the only way to know or to distinguish between the two, at least for me, was you could turn on the thing that says homeworld, or it says homeworld up in the corner, or it'll say another world.
Yeah.
And that was the only way that I could differentiate between the two. And there was some parts in the game where I got confused as to what dimension I was in. So, but well, like for like when I followed a guy, by the way, I had to follow a guide with this game just as much as I did with Chrono Trigger. This game does not give you good enough clues to know where to go next.
Yeah.
It will mention something once and then drop it. And that's exactly what my complaint was with Chrono Trigger as well. So I literally, the whole time I played this game, had my phone next to me following through, and I would read where I need to go next. And then
I think Chrono Trigger, though, has the excuse of it being an older game for the Super Nintendo. And like the time that those games were like that, they had to be vague because of, space limitations and couldn't hold your hand as much. I mean, you go back to the NES and they were even more vague than that. Like, it Chrono Cross, though, there's really not much of an excuse.
there's not an excuse. I agree.
Mm-mm.
It just didn't work. I think when I played this game originally, I did have the strategy guide with me the entire time I played it too.
Yeah.
This is one of those games that you can't play without a guide. And if you can, more power to you. Like, I don't know how you did it, but good job. There's a lot of exploring and talking to people before you progress the storyline, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like literally there were 10 places to go on each world map.
Yeah.
Like, that's, to me, it was just so closed off and so small that I was just really disappointed with how much more epic it could have felt. Because the cutscenes made it feel epic. The cutscenes were great. They were amazing. Even though, like, with the remaster, they for some reason didn't remaster the cutscenes. They kept them the same, and they're all blurry and not great looking. But they were still fine. Like, you still could tell what's going on and everything like that. Just a little disappointing in that regard. But the world itself just was not. Thank God for the music, because that made me want to get out there and explore the world, because it was really fun to listen to.
The music is great, but the graphics too. I mean, I did not feel. I didn't feel like the game or the world was too small. I felt like it was just right for what it was. You are going back to places multiple times throughout your adventure, though, and that's
right.
There's no doubt. Like, but that didn't bother me. Surprisingly enough, it didn't bother me at all.
Oh, you have a simple mind.
I just think that, just think that JJ is just a jerk, and but
that's fair.
No,
that's fair.
It really was. It was the hand painted backgrounds.
Oh,
the
gorgeous
art style, the
absolutely
music. It really does a great job at making this world come to life for me. It's so unlike any other game that I've played visually and musically that I think that's helped me to overlook some of its downfalls.
That's why I was so, like, disappointed about the cutscenes not being remastered, was because everything else, like, upscaled, looked amazing. It was so beautiful. And then you get to this cutscene and it's like, oh, I'm back to PS1. All right. Like, what?
Except for it looks even worse because you're looking at it on an HD TV and not a TV.
And it's jarring going from, like, how sharp the regular graphics look to that. It's just, I don't know what the thought process was. Maybe the time constraints or something. I'm not entirely sure, but it was a little disappointing.
Maybe
to see that.
Lost source files for those videos.
I would imagine they just used the source files and didn't mess with them. That's what it looked like.
Well, I mean, in order to up-res a video like that, you would have to have the original source files, and I'm thinking they didn't have them, and they were just pushing out what they had already rendered out.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I gotcha. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So moving on from that, I think that's a good segue into, because you mentioned, like, the exploration and not knowing where to go, and that there wasn't a lot of hand holding. I think so. Originally, when on my first playthrough, I'm going to talk about characters for a second, because there are like 43, 44, 42, something like that. A little over 40 playable characters. See, I don't think there are too many. I think there are too many for the way that the execution is in the game. If you're going to have that many characters, you need to have at least 4 party members in battle. Narrowing 40 plus down to 3, unless you're playing the game like a bajillion times, you're just not going to use everybody.
I think I did.
That was really frustrating. But did you really get attached to any of them?
No.
See what I mean? Like, because if you, like, I like to use everybody too, but I want to give everybody enough time to where, and you're switching out so fast in this that it's like, it was just frustrating. Like, if I had 2, I would never have 2 people with the same element in the same party. So it was like, having Surge and Lynx as your mains, I almost never had another black or white innate character in the party, which was frustrating, because there were some really cool ones that I wanted to use, but I didn't because of that. But if they had 4, then I would have no problem throwing in a double at some point. Like, if I had to fight a boss or something like that, I'll be like, oh, this guy's weak to red, so I'll bring 2 reds, and then I'll have 2 other colors in there, something like that. But in this case, it was just frustrating to not be able to have. That's why Suikoden is so amazing, because yeah, you have 108 playable characters, but you have 6 party members in all but one of the games. You have 6 playable party members that you can bring into battle at any given time. And the story also changes, depending on who you have when you do certain events and that kind of thing. When I first started my first playthrough on this most recent round of playthroughs that I've done, I was even more upset about how many characters there were and how little they spent developing any of them, along with the combat. But doing subsequent playthroughs and going for like the trophies and stuff, I've realized that this game actually encourages you not to use a guide when it comes to your characters. It basically, like, if you put different party members in your party and then go to either world and go to different areas, there are so many little private events that happen depending on who you've got with you, who you're talking to. There's items you can get. There's backstory for different characters. There's a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of the endings have those too, which is kind of interesting. But if you like put in the time to actually like switch them out and get to know them by exploring, and I'm talking like you have to put in a ton of time in this game if you want to get to all those characters, there actually is quite a bit of meat there. It's just not very well executed, in my opinion. And it really, really frustrated the hell out of me because it was such a wasted opportunity. There were some really, really cool side stories in there that I just wish they could have done more with. And they could have done more with if the world was bigger. But it was just really frustrating on that aspect. I thought that was interesting that once I started trophy hunting, my entire opinion kind of like opened up a little bit on how many characters there were, because I agree. At first I was like, there's way too many, especially for only having 3 in here, and then I like realized, you know what, I would still prefer 4 characters. They absolutely should have that, but there is quite a bit of side stuff here if you go looking for it and you actually like take the time to explore.
Yeah, a lot of the characters that you pick up do have a kind of a storyline to go with them. Some of them are super, super short. Some of them are a little bit longer, but they do try to flesh out the characters a little bit. But I always enjoyed, there are too many characters for you to be able to get attached to anyone, but I think that's the point. But I did enjoy whenever you do recruit a new party member, it's like a little bit of it's a reward, I guess.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And that was a driving factor for me, definitely, was going through and seeing, oh, this guy has a picture on his dialogue box of his face. That means I can probably recruit him, and I'm going to figure out how I can recruit him or her. And it was fun to do that, and it was always fun when they actually did join your party. But I think some of the storylines were pretty interesting, like the pirate ship guy, what's his name? I forget. Fargo. He had a whole quest line that was pretty good. So did the rock star Nikki and his stagehand. I can't remember anybody's names now. But Nikki? Anyway, they had something like that. It was
the blonde.
Yeah. And then the mermaid had a little bit of a storyline, just tiny little bit. Everybody did. Even the alien had a little bit of a storyline, and it was fun to go through and figure out.
That's what I mean, though, is they had a little bit of a storyline just in the main, but if you actually put them in your party and like went and did a bunch of side stuff, chances are you'd run into more of their backstory.
I got you.
That's what happened with quite a few of the characters. Yeah.
I was always excited though when I unlocked a new character to be able to put them in my party and see what their abilities were, just for the heck of it. That was always fun because all of them have unique special abilities that are unique to them. My favorite one was it was the girl with the pigtails, the blonde hair, and
Mickey.
No, it wasn't her. She was a younger girl. Anyway, her special ability was that she acted drunk and she would stumble around before attacking the enemy.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, Orcha or something. Is that her name?
No, it's not Orcha. Gosh,
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I when I recruited her, I put her in my party immediately, like I do with everybody. If I recruit somebody new, unless they throw on 4 characters at once, like they did at one point in time in that game, if they put a new character in my party, I'm going to put them in my party. And when I tried that ability, it cracked me up. I thought it was the funniest looking attack, and I wasn't expecting it at all. But so things like that were fun. And there is one huge gripe that I have with having this many characters, though. If you're going to have this many characters in your game and you want us to use all of your characters, make it easy to switch them in and out.
100%.
It is.
I was going to say the same thing. Yep.
It is tedious. Not. Oh my gosh, dude! It is not fun going through and changing characters, because there's two reasons why. The first reason is you have to be either at a save point or in the open world or world map in order to change your character using a special item. Oh, the items, by the way, that's another gripe that I have that we can get into after. But you have to use a specific item in order to change out your characters. But if you change out your characters, they don't unequip the character that you had in your party, because you have to put different gear on them, and you also have all your elements, which is basically your magic attacks, and all of those stay on that character. And so after you switch them out, you have to go back into your menu, a different menu, mind you, and you have to go and unequip all that stuff from the character that you took out of your party, and then equip the new character.
Unless you have enough gear to give everybody stuff, but that would take forever and a freaking day.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that it did a good job of making me not want to change out party characters.
Right. That's a big reason I didn't change out very often.
It was just a huge pain. Yeah. But the item system, well, actually, when it comes to gear and stuff and money, did you spend much money in that game?
When I started crafting, yes. Prior to that, no.
I didn't spend any money, and I don't even think I did any crafting until like the second half of the game.
Did you ever get rainbow gear?
No, I didn't. I collected a bunch of rainbow stuff, but I didn't.
Yeah, that's like 25,000 a pop every time you make one rainbow item.
I got you. Yeah, I never did that. I never felt the need to, honestly.
You don't. No.
You get ultimate weapons towards the end for some of your key characters if you purposely go out and find them. And I got Surge's
level 7 tech abilities. Well, Surge's level ultimate weapon, I believe, is part of the main story.
Yeah. And once you get that, it does an obscene amount of damage to the enemies that it's it kind of took any reason I had for upgrading anything.
You can make Glenn really powerful too, because he eventually ends up dual wielding if you get his ultimate weapon.
Oh, I didn't do that.
And him and Surge have a dual tech that is like stupid strong.
So as far as the items go, they have, and I'm not going to be talking about like usable items. Usable items are things that you could attach to your character, or you don't have like healing items. Surprisingly enough, you have they're elements, healing elements that you use. It's kind of a weird system. Everything in this game is just weird.
I mean, you do have healing items to a certain extent, but they're equipped like elements. Like the tablets and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the tablets.
But they're consumable, so you can run out of them. Whereas the healing spell elements you can't run out of.
But you can only use the spell elements in battle. You can't use them outside of battle.
Correct.
So
after battle, you can.
After battle, yeah, only if you have your bars charged up all the way, or at least high enough to be able to use it.
Yeah.
It's funny because it took me a little while to understand how the battle system worked, but now that I understand it, it's good. I like it. It's different, and I like different. I just feel like it's a little bit it's a little bit too weird. There's too many mechanics.
It's a little clunky. Yeah.
Clunky.
The concept is cool though.
Yeah. The items that I'm talking about are the items that are like key items, and these key items are used to trigger different events in the game, or different open up a locked door or something like that, you know. So the thing is, they don't explicitly explain for each one of these items what they do, or when you need to use them, or where you need to use them. So it could be very particular. If you don't stand in this precise right spot and use the right item, it's not going to work. And dude,
NPCs will tell you what they do, but it's not like in your face by any means.
So like the beach, the main area where you travel across the different realms, or there's a specific spot in the beach where you have to use the specific item to bring up the portal in order to teleport. If you don't stand in that right spot, you're not going to summon the portal. And that was originally, before I knew where the spot was, that was a source of frustration for me, because I couldn't figure out exactly where that spot was that I needed to stand.
There's a glowing spot on the ground.
The glowing spot didn't show up to me until after I used the item. So it was just a beach. But on top of that,
like a beach.
It was a beach. There are so many items in the game that you like towards the end, if you are needing to use a specific item. First of all, it's just a list, a text list. There are no images to help illustrate what these items are. And that's kind of a problem. So then you're going through your items, and if you don't know the specific one you're looking for, or the specific one you have to use, I would have to go through and use each one that I thought was the one that I needed to use until it worked. And they don't get rid of any items either. So
I was going to say, it doesn't help that like 90% of them you use once and then you don't need them anymore, but they still keep them in that list for you.
And they totally should have gotten rid of them, because scrolling through that list is a huge pain in the ass as well. But it's, you know, these are annoyances that I had, but it didn't ruin my experience with the game, if that makes any sense. It totally should have, but it didn't.
I have tons of gripes with the game, as I've mentioned already, but I still think it's a really, really fun experience.
And I think that's all attributed, honestly, to the art, both musical and visual art. I think that because this game looks so unique, and it plays unique, it keeps me coming back. But honestly, though, we talked about items and everything. I do want to talk about the battle system a little bit, because that was one of the most unique parts of this game. So the way the battle system, do you want to explain it? You might explain it better than I can.
Sure. It is pretty much turn-based. You can manipulate it a little bit by selecting who goes and whatnot, which really helps when you're trying to do summons, because I'm not super crazy on how summons work. I know how to do it now, so it's a lot easier than the first time I played it, when I had no idea what I was doing. But now that I know how to manipulate like turn order and that kind of thing, it's 1,000 times easier. I also, that is another thing, I don't like how you get summons. Like, you get a few of them, but not until way late in the game, and there's a lot of them that you have to like capture, which I wasn't crazy about anyways. But so the battle is basically like it's turn-based, and you have 7 like endurance points or stamina points, and you basically like use those points. You have your strong attack, your mid attack, and your weak attack. Your weak attack is going to use 1 stamina point, mid attack is going to use 2, and your strong attack is going to use 3. And you basically can use those 7 in any way you want. Stronger attacks are going to be less of a chance to hit, while weaker attacks are going to do less damage, but they're going to be an increased chance to hit. And you can actually like work your way up. So start with like a weak attack because it's harder to hit, and that will actually improve your chances on the stronger ones. So you basically want to build up that momentum as you're fighting. So you do like 2 weak attacks and then, a strong attack, or 2 weak, that kind of thing. Or you can just gamble it all and hope for the best and just do 2 big strong attacks too. So that's kind of like how the battle system works. You're also, if any of you ever played Final Fantasy VII, it's kind of like the materia system in there, in that you're equipping elements to characters. And you can use those basically like every time you make a successful physical attack, it'll boost your element gauge by 1. And depending on where your elements are equipped in said gauge, those are the ones you can use. So let's say you get 2 successful hits, you can use any element you have equipped up to level 2. And then you just kind of want to keep hitting as much as possible so you can use those higher level elements and that kind of thing. It's honestly really tough to just explain, because I know that I just threw a lot of words out there. It's really something you kind of just have to dive into. It's not that tough to pick up once you get the ball rolling, though. Once you know what you're doing, it's really not bad. So,
but it's super unique in that way. Like no other game has this kind of unique system where your elements are basically your magic. Your magic is tied to those attacks that JJ was talking about with your stamina points. Only when you connect a hit will you get an element bar added to your elements. And so your higher end spells are at the end of your element bar, but you can't use that higher end spell unless you connect enough attacks that activate all the way up. And I know that makes no sense unless you're looking at the game and playing it, but believe me when I say it requires you to nail some physical attacks before you can use any magic attacks. And if you want to use strong magic attacks, you've got to connect enough physical attacks in order to do so. So there's no magic points, there's no anything like that. And I think that's such a really cool idea. And honestly, I never tired of the battle system. I enjoyed it all the way through the game.
I did. I auto battled through like the last like half of the game.
Did you?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I did to a certain extent.
Not bosses, but
it slows the pacing down because there are more things that you have to consider. And whenever you're doing a boss battle or something, you want to use those higher end elements. So you spend a lot of time trying to get those higher end elements so you can cast them. And then I remember when we talked about this last time, I was saying that the game was easy. The game gets significantly harder, like later on. I was having a difficult time. There was one boss in particular where I fought him a few times. I couldn't beat him. So I ended up having to manipulate the game using the quality of life improvements that they gave.
You cheated.
I did, man. Did you not?
Not on my first playthrough.
This is technically your second playthrough though, right?
Yeah, but I used those when my first playthrough on this remastered version.
On the remaster.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did. I at the point when I tried to fight the boss a couple times and he beat me both times and I wasn't getting anywhere. I was like, you know what? They put this feature in this game that allows me to basically not miss an attack, or no, I could still miss.
So you know what that means, everybody? That means like Xenogears, Adrian now has another asterisk next to games that he's beaten for the podcast.
I did cheat on that one too, didn't I?
Yeah.
You know what? It's
aware.
Okay. It's okay. You're allowed to.
You didn't even cheat on that one. You just watched somebody else do it.
On Xenogears? No, I beat Xenogears.
Yeah, but didn't you say you couldn't beat the final boss, so you watched a YouTube video of it?
No, what I did was I was playing it on an emulator, and I manipulated the emulator to allow me to win.
Oh, so you did. Okay, all right, my mistake. You did cheat.
I did cheat. Totally cheated, and I did legit beat it. I didn't watch a video beat
asterisks.
So. But yes, I did utilize.
Man,
there's a feature in this game that allows you to the enemy can't hit you. Essentially, they miss every single attack. I did use that. I used it a few times for some of those harder boss battles. It helped. The other quality of life improvement they put in this game was the fast. What is it called? Fast forward or whatever.
Well, that's in the original too. You just have to beat the game once.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's incredible. So it just speeds up your movement, but it doesn't speed up anything else. And it speeds up the battle as well. But like the music still plays like it should. It's kind of weird. Sometimes I would forget that I'm on fast forward mode because I played most of the game in fast forward mode, to be honest with you.
Yeah, my second playthrough took me 10 hours to get to the end with that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you do on your second playthrough, did you do the improved battles or easier battles?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. On that I did, because I did New Game Plus. I had all my characters leveled up and I was just blowing through everything. I didn't want to like try to strategize for stuff that wasn't
at that
going to take
point
long.
you don't need to. Yeah,
right.
If you're just
I was just like, I just want to
get
get the trophies. I just want to get through this and be done with it. Yeah. No, I
so
absolutely.
there was what was the other one? There was another one that I'm missing.
You can slow down time as well, if you want.
I don't see a use for that. Like
they're the dragon feeding game.
That's it. That's literally the only thing.
Then the auto battle, where you push both thumbsticks down and your characters will just attack on their own. You don't have to do anything.
Oh,
that's how that's what I did with the random encounters as I was going through like the final areas, because I was just like, oh my god, just get through this.
Oh man, I didn't know about that one. Okay, so that one's new to me.
And then
the other one where you don't get
no encounters.
Where you can no encounters. Yes, exactly. Yep. Those are awesome. I love it. If you're gonna do a remaster like this and add these things to make it easier and quicker to get through, hell yeah, I'm all for that.
See, and normally I would say like this game doesn't need it because of like, I think those are good features for games that are grindy. This game is not grindy. There's nothing to grind really, because you don't get experience unless you're fighting bosses.
That's my biggest complaint.
A tiny few stat boosts maybe, but nothing crazy.
Yeah.
So it's not as much needed, but at the same time, because combat does take a long time, because of all the attacks that you're doing and everything like that, it does take longer than normal. It is nice to have those speed boosts in there.
I agree. But you touched on it. The biggest thing that annoyed me with the battle system is there's no clear progression or character development in the game.
Right.
You go through all these battles, and you get these little stat boosts, like you're saying, but I could never tell if my character was actually improving in any way.
Yeah. That was frustrating.
Yeah. So grinding wasn't even the thing. Like if you want to go explore and fight battles and stuff, it really didn't matter because you're not noticing any improvement on your characters. Why would you want to do it?
Right.
So we talked a lot about the gameplay and everything, but we barely scratched the surface on the story. There's a lot to digest in the storyline, and it's a little bit, you're going to give me crap like you always do, because I'm going to say it's confusing, but it legitimately
it's goofy. I don't disagree with you. It's confusing. I understood it more after a second playthrough. I just like I said, that's why I kind of skimmed over it before with just talking about like the main gist of the surge thing between the two worlds, because that's how it starts off, and that is kind of like for the bulk of the game, that's what you were trying to investigate, and eventually you learn things about the other characters that you come across. There's a character named Lynx who is kind of like the main antagonist throughout most of the game, and you at one point play as him without spoiling too much
through a significant chunk of the game. And actually I think we could go ahead and spoil the heck out of this, because we're talking about it.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Okay, so I think when we're comparing Chrono Trigger with Chrono Cross story wise, even though Chrono Cross is more confusing, Chrono Trigger is much more basic, simple. You got this alien life form that is eating your planet, and you got to stop them, save the world.
Yep.
Super easy. And I think that was one of the things that kind of turned me off to Chrono Trigger. It was a little bit too simple,
I mean, you can boil this one down to the same alien is what caused all this to happen.
yes, you can. But there's more to it than that. And there's a lot of things going on, especially the conflict between Kid and Lynx, Surge and Lynx, Surge and Surge, the lack of Surge, let's say. I enjoy the aspect of having a alternate timeline. I think that's such a cool idea to explore, and I think this game does it pretty well. I mean, with the exception of the two timelines looking too similar, there are enough differences between the areas in those two worlds to show that off.
What's funny is I was going to say that I think they're almost too different in a lot of regards, just because if you think about the only difference between the two is that Surge died in one. Are you gonna tell me he really impacted that much in this other world? Like, it's kind of a little hard to believe in that regard, but I mean, I get it. It's, you know, JRPG, whatever. And I'm sure somebody can come at me and be like, here's why it impacted this, and, you know, break it all down. But just at the same time, like, I kind of like was just like, man, this is like Fargo is a perfect example. Like, in one world, his ship is a freaking casino, and the other world, it's like he's like, you know, a pirate and everything like that. And it's like, how did Surge not being alive affect this and all? I think it's just weird. You know, but I mean, you just look at it as like a chain of events that, you know, one stems from the next and whatnot.
I had the same thought that you were mentioning, like, how could one person affect the timeline this drastically, especially with all these different people? But when you look at it in terms of how they set up Surge is more than just a regular person.
Yes. Yeah.
So in the events that led up to his either living or dying, you know, was a huge event in and of itself. You know, the people that had to take him to the what was that facility or whatever to try to keep him from dying, because he got poisoned, if I remembering or interpreting this correct. He got poisoned by something, and the guy who found it, well, yeah, actually, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Surge was found by this guy. He was like a baby washed up on shore type of situation. He took him in, and Surge ended up getting poisoned. I don't remember how. Do you remember how?
It's a little fuzzy. I honestly don't.
I think it was because of the panther that attacked him, or the lynx that attacked him?
It may have been from the bite. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that's a big significant point in the game why Lynx is the main antagonist for Surge, because Surge, you'll find out later that Lynx is actually a robot, and the robot takes on the form of Surge's most feared thing, which is this panther or lynx or whatever that poisoned him. Anyway, the guy who found Surge took him in as his own, and whenever he got poisoned, he went on basically like a voyage to try to cure him of this poison. And on his way there, he either makes it there and cures Surge, or they end up getting in a wreck or something like that and dying. Or at least Surge dies, if I remember right. And so that's how the two timelines diverge. So it is a bigger deal than somebody just simply dying. But yeah, I mean, in terms of all the things that end up happening, especially with, you know, the fairies, whenever the little dwarves come and destroy the fairy village, like, what is that? How does that have to change, you know, compared to what happened? You know, it's little things like that that's kind of weird. But, you know, but Surge is not a normal standard character. He is.
I mean, they call him the Chrono Trigger. Like, he is like a catalyst for a lot of things to behave differently in these alternate dimensions. And who's to say that, you know, with the confirmation that there are tons of alternate universes out there, that there isn't another one that is like super similar with just the barest minimal, you know, this is just one that we got that had these specific branches that happened, you know, with infinite possibilities. This just happened to be the one that we crossed over to. So
yeah. Well, and that idea was really cool. Lynx, I think, I didn't really feel him as an antagonist. He didn't seem that evil to me until a little bit later in the game, whenever some things go down. He kind of like just became evil, like out of nowhere. Yeah. Like, he was kind of like quiet and reserved, and like you would hear that he was a bad guy and everything like that, but then just out of nowhere he became like vicious, and it was like, what? All right. I guess okay, man. Sure. And then well, I guess the turning point for him is whenever you're at the top of Viper Manor and he stabs Kid. And then that becomes like a whole story point in itself as well. Like, Kid gets stabbed and you have the option of either saving her or not saving her. Kid, by the way, is another character who is like, she's just this rambunctious person who's like happy-go-lucky, free. No, not happy-go-lucky. She's not happy-go-lucky. She is, but she isn't. She's on a mission to get Lynx, because Lynx killed, who you come to find out later, your caretaker, Luca from Chrono Trigger, which I thought was a super cool connection to make. Even at the point in the game, whenever you are basically exploring Luca's house, and you see the robot that you fight in Chrono Trigger sitting down there dead, and the fires burning down the house, and you see
it's all the same layout as the house in Chrono Trigger as well.
I didn't remember enough about the house to be able to make that connection, but I could definitely tell like some things were similar. But the in the pictures of the main characters that were drawn by crayon that were hanging on the wall, that was so cool. But yeah, Kid is driven by basically vengeance, trying to get Lynx. Surge is kind of along for the ride. This is another one of those games where I feel like a silent protagonist is not the best idea for a game that's centrally focused on this character.
Especially when in Radical Dreamers he talked.
Yeah.
It's odd.
I don't, again, going back to Chrono Trigger, and I said I don't like silent protagonists. I still don't like silent protagonists.
I'm not crazy about either.
It didn't work in this game.
I think the main reason I like Chrono though is because I really like his character design. I think it's really cool. Surge's character design is fine, I guess, but I really like Chrono's.
So like, the other thing, like, well, here I'm getting off track, but storyline, you progress through these two alternate worlds, and you're trying to figure out like why you died. You're also trying to stop Lynx for whatever, you don't know what Lynx's main driving force is or what's driving him, but you come to find out later that he is a robot that was put together to basically kill Surge. I think wasn't that the reason for his forming to begin with, to kill the Chrono Trigger and by the dragons. So you think you're
something like that, yeah.
You think so. There's dragons in the game too. There's like 7 elemental dragons. The game is heavily focused on elements, and it elements are, wind, fire, water, those types of elements. But the elements are also the elements that you use in battle for magic, and they correspond to a particular color. So you have red, green, yellow, blue, black, and white. And you have dragons that also correspond with these elements, and you are trying to find these dragons, and you think these dragons are going to help you with your problems or whatever and save the world. But actually the dragons are, after you release them, you find out that they are actually against you. And I don't know. This is where the game gets super confusing to me, and I'm probably way off track with what I'm trying to describe. But anyway, it's cool. And I thought the dragons were awesome. I think they were underutilized and didn't make a lot of sense, but the designs on those dragons were so damn cool. I was so heavily inspired by these designs. I did a little digital painting of the earth dragon, or the green dragon. I think the green dragon is the coolest looking one. Mm-hmm. So I just, you saying that kind of like made me think that was weird. Lynx isn't a robot. He's that big robot that you fight, whenever he changes into that robot. You remember that part?
Lynx himself though isn't a robot. He was actually Surge's father, Wazuki.
Was he?
Yeah.
I didn't get that. I think you're right though. Yeah, but
that's why when you said robot, I was like, robot?
Because
sure where that came. I think he was like brought back and created in that image, but he was used from Wazuki. And I think the dragons were the ones that did it, if I'm not mistaken.
The dragons, yes, with who is it? Harley or Harley? I don't know. Anyway, the jester looking
Harley, because she's a Harlequin.
So
Harlequin, whatever. Harley
works for the dragons more or less, and she was part of the formation of Lynx. And Lynx, I think Lynx, you're right. Lynx is Surge's dad, but Lynx is also this mechanical being. He's not an actual. It's not an. I don't know. Lynx is completely made up, and the reason I call him
not like a machine though.
Yeah, like there's that part in the game where that you fight that big robot thing.
That's the supercomputer. That's not Lynx though.
Yeah,
that's not Lynx. That's the one that created Lynx.
Huh. Okay. I don't know for sure, but when I watched it,
I'm looking at the wiki right now. He was Surge's biological father, Wazuki, until he was corrupted by the Fate supercomputer.
Okay. But there's that scene in the game where he changes into that computer and you have to fight him. And I always interpreted that as Lynx is this computer and can take on any shape or form that he wants. That's why he took on the form of the Lynx, because the Lynx is the thing that Surge is most scared of. Yeah. Yes. And so then whenever you go to fight him again, he changes into that supercomputer, which it is what he is, but he takes on a different form that's maybe harder to defeat in battle.
Ugh. It's a convoluted mess.
It is a convoluted mess. It really is. And it didn't make a whole lot of sense, but I made enough sense of it. Yeah. I made enough sense out of it to make sense to me, but even still, it was all kinds of confusing. I think the game really started out strong and I could understand where it was going, but then towards the end,
it did start out simple and then it just went, I mean, it's a JRPG, so that's par for the course. That's what happens.
But there is a part in the game where Lynx actually kills Surge, and Lynx takes over Surge's body. Or no. Lynx takes over Surge's body and Surge jabs a knife into Kid. And that's a cutscene for that and everything. But then Lynx takes over Surge's body and then you take over Lynx's body. And so you play as Lynx through a good chunk of the game, like a surprising amount of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. When you switch back, it's almost the end.
It didn't bother me. I remember that not really bothered me when I played it originally either, because I don't think I really had an attachment to Surge as a character. So whenever he changed into Lynx, it was shocking how it happened and everything, but I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. And I felt like having the opposite element attacks with Lynx was kind of a cool idea, because Surge is white elemental attacks and Lynx is black elemental attacks, and so they have a whole different way of battling and everything. But also going through and talking to different characters and seeing how they react to you as Lynx, not knowing that you are not Lynx, that you're Surge, and then also losing all of the characters that you acquired up to the point of the switch, and then having to acquire new characters to follow Lynx. I like that part of the game. I enjoyed it. The game was it threw a lot of surprises at you, and it got super convoluted towards the end, like JRPGs do, like you say. But it didn't bother me too much. Whenever you beat the game and the credits are rolling and they've got the video of the woman walking, looking at things in a cityscape, but it's like a real video. It's not like a computer animated video.
Yeah.
That was so weird. Yeah. It's like, well, I didn't get that. What's up with that? That was so random and weird.
I think it's just another play on the multiple universes.
Yeah. The other thing is, you can, at the final boss, you have the option.
Kid is supposed to be like the reincarnation of Shala from Chrono Trigger.
And okay, so explain Shala to me, because I didn't quite understand that. And I knew there was a connection to Chrono Trigger, but I didn't know how.
Shala was the sister of Magus in Chrono Trigger.
She's the one who was in the.
She was the good one in the family.
Oh. Okay. Where
their mom was like, Lavos, yay!
Yeah.
And then she was like, I'm gonna try and defend everybody and stuff. And I if I remember correctly, she died. But there's a handful of characters in this. If you like read online, they're supposed to be like reincarnations of characters from Chrono Trigger as well.
Yeah. So what was the significance
Which just adds
of Shala
to the convolutedness?
Besides being a character from Chrono Trigger, how was she significant in this one?
She is she has some kind of a connection to Lavos with the frozen flame.
I just thought it was kind of weird. You have the option when you fight the final boss, you have the option of either defeating the boss through battle, or you can rescue Shala by using all the different elements on the final.
That's like the real ending, the legit ending. Yeah. Some of the other endings are like really, really weird. So I remember, yeah, she's the one that saved everybody when you remember when Chrono died in Chrono
Yeah,
Trigger? She's
yeah,
the one that basically like whisks everybody else away before they get killed too.
yeah.
But she's basically just like a reincarnated version of her. I don't know that there's anything like super significant as far as that, but she's just like, it's more of just a like a nod back to that.
That's what I was getting. Like, it felt like it was because she had no real significance in Chrono Cross at all, and then all of a sudden you're trying to save her. And it was just really weird. And then you find out the kid is just a reincarnation of Shala. Like, what? Why? How? I didn't get all that.
Yeah, I'll be perfectly honest with you. After like several hours in the game, I kind of thought the story was just garbage, and I really didn't care that much. It just like, I love JRPGs, don't get me wrong, but I really just, there is a point where I get to where my eyes just glaze over, and I'm like, that's why I'm not crazy about Kingdom Hearts. Like, I love the individual worlds. I love going to like Atlantis or to Hercules' world, that kind of thing, and doing those little stories it contained in each one of those worlds. But the overall story of Kingdom Hearts, I couldn't care less, because I have no idea what the hell is going on, and it just becomes more and more confusing the more you look into it. Go ahead, roast me, internet. It's fine. It's I felt the same way with this. I just got to a point where, and that's why I was kind of looking stuff up just now, because I was like, I don't even know if I'm remembering this right. This is kind of what I remember, but my eyes were half glazed over, and I was just kind of on autopilot for the last third of the game. Story wise,
that's kind of what makes kind of our discussions unique. Is like we're talking about this through the lens of just playing a game casually and enjoying it for what it is, not taking a deep dive into anything and trying to fully dissect anything. Like, I it's not what I'm trying to do, but I do want to understand the story to a certain extent. And this is just my interpretation of the events that I saw.
There's videos on YouTube that you can go check out where they'll do like a deep dive into it, and they'll even tell you like who the reincarnations of different characters are and stuff. Like, I think Glenn is heavily, kind of supposed to be Frog, whose name was Glenn in Chrono Trigger as well. And I think Gil, who I know you didn't recruit him, but he is the mage. You got Nikki instead. But Gil, I guess, might be Magus as well. I'm not entirely sure on that, but yeah, it's a whole bunch of little side things like that, and it's just kind of, it's fun to look into if you're really into it. I really, why don't we get into like final thoughts and whether we recommend it or not? Okay. So I really enjoyed this game. I really, really like it. I will say that nostalgia played a bigger part in me being excited for it when I started up again, because I remembered loving it when I was younger and having an absolute blast with it. But I really didn't apparently remember it that well, because I had so many things that playing through it this time, I was like, I don't remember this. And holy crap, this is like going by a lot slower than I originally remembered. And oh my gosh, I don't remember there being that many references to Chrono Trigger before. And there were a lot of surprises and everything like that. It pretty much was like me playing a new game again, which is a great thing. I'm not complaining about that. But just the pacing and the just info dumps towards the end with just all the just sideways turns just were a little too much for me, a little heavy-handed with just the weirdness. And I was not crazy about it. And that, like I said, that's why my eyes glazed over. So it's really hard for me to recommend this to anybody other than somebody just looking for more Chrono Trigger. And even then, just know that you're not getting more Chrono Trigger gameplay. You might be getting a little more Chrono Trigger story, but it's going to be way more convoluted and not as like easy to grasp as Chrono Trigger was. And like we were saying about the gameplay, you'll have fun recruiting characters. It's really great getting them, but there's so many things in this game that discourage you from switching out your party members, like the equipment swapping and element swapping, and only being able to use 3 at a time, and not being able to, or not necessarily like wanting to be strategic when it comes to using what character / elements you have in battle. Because with 3 people, you more often than not don't want to put 2 of the same element in your party. And when your main character has 1, you've got a handful of other white or black elements. You don't want to use them because, you know, you've already got somebody in there with that, but you're forced to use. So I don't think this game is for everybody. I really think just the most, like, if you love PS1 RPGs, JRPGs, and you don't mind convoluted stories, and if you really like digging into games, there is a lot here to learn about and to appreciate and get into. Not to mention the art, like we mentioned, the art style, it's gorgeous to look at. That alone, even if you just want to watch a let's play or something, just listening to the music and looking at the art is fantastic. So I recommend that. But I definitely would say that unless you're somebody who really likes to dive in and dig into exploration and trying to, like, look at every nook and cranny, the story's going to be a little lackluster, and there's not going to be a lot motivating you to keep pushing forward in this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I agree with you for the most part. I will say that I enjoyed my playthrough of Chrono Cross better than Chrono Trigger. But I think my enjoyment came more from aesthetics than anything. I absolutely adore the art in this game. The visual style, the hand-painted backgrounds, the character designs, everything visual in this game. The dragon designs are awesome. I love it. The environments, the levels that you go to, the worlds you go to, everything is so beautiful in this. And then you pair that with, hands down, the best freaking soundtrack of any game ever. Put my hand down on it. It is the best soundtrack. It has always been my favorite soundtrack since I originally played the game back when it came out.
It's up there for me. Yeah.
I absolutely adore this soundtrack. And there's very few songs in this game that I didn't care for as much, but most of them were just awesome. And I listen to the soundtrack all the time. So for those 2 reasons alone, when you combine those artistic elements, I was able to overlook the shortcomings a lot easier because I enjoyed the senses, the overwhelming enjoyment I got from just visually and musically and everything. It's just, that's what kept me going. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I enjoyed the hell out of this playthrough. I think that if you are somebody who appreciates art and music, you should absolutely play this game. There's not very many games out there that are like this. It's wholly unique in visual style and music and everything. But I mean, if you're going into this and you're just really wanting to play for the storyline or something, maybe give it a skip. It's the storyline isn't great. And like we said, it's convoluted and confusing. Collecting characters is a lot of fun. That's just that kept me going back and playing. The battle system is unique. I think this game is worthy of checking out. Like, for anybody who's even remotely interested in it or curious about it, absolutely, I think it's a game that you should check out. But even for people who have played it, I know a lot of people are split. You either love it or you hate it. I don't know many people who are kind of in the center and like, it was okay. But you,
yeah.
Well,
I lean more towards it. I like it. I like it, though. I should say I like it.
Yeah, I do think, and if you're wanting to play it, I definitely recommend that you play Chrono Trigger first. Even though the connections are very loose and spread out, they're there, and they're very much, they helped my appreciation of what they crafted here with this game, even more so than it did when I first played it. I would say that I always had a fondness for this game, and there's not very many games that I play through a second time, but I think I enjoyed my playthrough of this game the second time more so than I did the first time. So I don't know. I love the hell out of it. I say
playthrough with an asterisk.
If you want to use some quality of life things, by all means do it. just to experience the game.
Yeah, if you want to experience the story, use those cheats. Go for it.
Yeah,
because the battle system is very slow. Otherwise, you're gonna want to turn that speed on. So, but nonetheless, good game. Yeah, for sure.
I can't believe we've gone on this long talking about this game.
As much as I like the art style and how beautiful it looked, I still prefer Chrono Trigger because I'm just such an Akira Toriyama fan.
Yeah,
I adore his character designs.
I know that was a big issue when this game came out. It's like Akira Toriyama is not doing the artwork, like that's not what's going on. This is a Chrono Trigger.
It's not bad by any means. This is still gorgeous.
And absolutely. Like I said,
like a nice painting.
I prefer the art style in this game over Chrono Triggers. I just do.
And he had to cheat to win. So what does that tell you? So just saying. Next month, we are talking about non-existent E3. So even though E3 2022 has been canceled, won't be there, the game companies are still, for the most part, doing big presentations like they normally would around this time of year. So we're kind of just gonna talk about what's been announced, what's going on throughout the month of June. I'm sure I will probably watch them all as they air, and then before we record, I will probably watch them all again just to get a refresher. So I'm excited to see what they announce. I know we're gonna. I really think, even though we don't have an E3 this year, we're gonna get some pretty cool announcements. We haven't had anything really awesome announced in a while. Well, today being the exception, there's a few things announced, but we'll talk about that on next show. Cool. Today being the 2nd of June. Yes. So that's when State of Play by PlayStation was on. Yes. I wasn't impressed. Sorry. All right. With that, this is the Pixel Perspective signing off. My name is JJ. I'm Adrian. And as always, keep on gaming.